To our film Alumni Careers event. I'd like to introduce Katie Evans from Paramount, who's going to share her experiences and her insights for you this evening. Over to you, Katie.
Thanks. Hi, I'm Katie. I'm currently the EMEA Digital Marketing Intern, which is quite a long title, but EMEA is basically Europe, Middle East, and Africa. But we focus heavily on Europe. So some of the biggest territories I work on are Spain, Italy, Middle East, a lot of different countries that have very interesting cinema environments. So it's quite good to be able to get the landscape. So I studied at Southampton from 2018 to 2021. My maths is terrible. Doing my bachelor's in film, and then I studied my master's last year when I graduated from film and cultural management, which is a very interesting course, and I definitely recommend it. And I'm sure Ruby Chung will be very happy me saying that. So after finishing my degree, I actually had a bit of an overlap. So I was almost writing my dissertation. I don't think I'd even started it when I just randomly got a response from a job I'd applied to like 3 months before saying, do you want to come for an interview? And it was with Paramount. So I hadn't even really started job hunting. It was sort of just putting the feelers out there, and went for the interview, went through a few stages, and then I ended up getting the role. So that was pretty good. So I was actually doing my master's and my first time job full time at the same time, which is quite intense, but definitely great. And I started at the best time because I got to work on Top Gun Maverick, which was the biggest title of last year, and quite a big title, apart from Avatar, for the foreseeable, to be honest. It's looking like a lot of people are trying to compete with that title. So it was a great time to start. I've also worked on like Babylon, currently working on Transformers, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, what else? Smile, which I love horror films, so that was pretty cool considering we actually acquired that film. So it was not likely it was going to be such a hit, but the marketing campaign for that was pretty awesome, and I got to help with that. So because I'm digital marketing, I do a lot of social media campaigns. I work with a lot of clients, so Amazon, Sky, basically everything you see on your television, on your laptop when you go online. So that was pretty cool. I don't know what other points I had. I ended up in this role quite randomly, really, and I hadn't really planned on working in distribution. I kind of tailored my degree choice and my master's to working in exhibitions, so film festivals and cinemas. And I still kind of have that goal, but working in different stages of the like film life cycle is quite a good insight into how it all works. So I think what I'm doing now really makes me appreciate how important cinemas are for every element of the film cycle. So our digital sales are only really because of the posts that we do, but also all the knowledge of the film that you get from the massive advertising campaigns that our theatrical team do when the film is out in cinema. So it's really important how much goes into that. And it's also been quite interesting to see how working with the production side is. So one of our biggest stakeholders as such is Tom Cruise himself, and he is quite an intense man to deal with, and it's worth it because he makes things really, really stand out, and he makes things noticeable, and everyone is drawn to him. He is one of the top stars now that brings in an audience, I believe, from recent statistics, which I think is wild. And with the new Mission Impossible coming out that we're working on, it's going to be an interesting ride. When I went to my interview, they said it's not all glamorous, but you do actually get to do some cool things. So I've been to like premieres of Babylon, where they have these cool burlesque nights where everyone's dancing and you see the film and they have live bands. But obviously there's also a lot of like hard graft behind that, of spreadsheets and a lot of calls with clients, which can be interesting, but it's so worthwhile when you see the outcome. Yeah. I don't know what else really. Uh, I think I that whilst it's been useful to do this job, I should have told myself when I was younger maybe that you don't need to go into what you want to do straight away, because I have had a few blips throughout the job where I've been thinking, is this what I want to do? But I am only 23 and I only left uni last year. So there is a lot of time to work out where I want to be. And working in such a huge company really gives you an insight to the global landscape, especially since we have offices all around the world and the employees get to kind of travel. Sadly, I'm an intern, so I don't. But if you progress in the company, you definitely get a lot of opportunity for travel. So that's something I'd never have even thought about when I was at uni thinking about film. So yeah, thanks.
Oh, thank you so much, Katie. I can tell just from how you talk that you do enjoy what you do, and there's a lot of enthusiasm there, and that is fantastic to see. But yeah, some very exciting things. I can't wait for the next Mission Impossible, but that's just because I like the series. So that's I'm already, and I have Paramount, so I'm like, we'll have that first, which is quite exciting to have. I have written some questions down that I will say for when we do the Q&A, because there's a couple of things that you said I thought, oh, I wonder what that involved. But what I really liked was you picking up on the point, and we say this to all of our students, that the first job doesn't have to be the job. You know, it's very much around, I think, in some cases, finding your feet, collecting different work experiences so you can find out, that's the bit that I do like, that's the bit that I'm not so keen on. So yeah, I think it is an important message. There's often, I'm sure you felt it yourself, a lot of pressure that when you're about to graduate, it has to be right. I need to have this massive next step already organized, and that's it now in terms of my career. But we know as careers professionals that in modern times, careers are made out of just various work experiences. It isn't necessarily just one thing for life. You are utilizing lots of transferable skills that can go into different areas. So it was nice that you picked that point up. So thank you very much, Katie. I am now going to hand over to Imogen to share her experiences.
Hi everyone, I'm Imogen Arthur. I'm a visual effects production manager. I've done this role, I've worked in visual effects since finishing. I did English and film at Southampton. I graduated in 2018. I've written down some notes. So I got to my current role. I'm in visual effects, you have kind of two sides. There's client side, which is a freelancer, or you work for the film or TV show, and then you have vendor side, which do the visual effects. There's obviously roles in between, but it's kind of, there's two sides in it. And so my job, I work for the film to make sure the film gets done to everyone's satisfaction, essentially. So we have meetings with directors, producers, we have visual effects budget that we try to adhere to. And obviously it's my role's a big part of the shoot, so getting all the data we need and following it all the way from prep until finishing, which can often be a year later. So when I finished, well, when I was in my third year, I didn't really have much experience in film at all, but by third year, I decided I wanted to work in film. So I kind of sought out any dailies work I could do as a runner. So I know Flog It does quite a lot of dailies running, and I did that. And then I tried to look for other opportunities, but film I found quite difficult to come by. And my first role in film actually is I found someone who lived in like my village at home that I didn't know, but someone told me they worked in film, and so I put my CV through their door. And that's how I got my first job in film, and they worked in visual effects, and they were working on Bohemian Rhapsody at the time, which was very lucky. And I've worked with him for a number of years, just going from show to show. And now that I'm 5 years later, I think testament to that is obviously the film industry has kind of a cloud around it where it seems quite impenetrable and you have to know someone to get in. And I think that is often the case, and that's sort of what happened with me. But I think it gets you in your first role in one way, but you're having to be confident and continuing and showing yourself in that first role will then get you your next one. And there's a lot of links now, you can find anyone on LinkedIn and message them, and then yeah, you just never know who knows other people as well. I mean, the film industry is enormous, so I'm sure everyone knows someone who knows someone. So yeah, what do I like about my job? I really like my job. I like being a freelancer. I think you end up meeting so many people, and I really like having, we have a very strict deadline. We have a purpose, and you just work on that show to make sure that gets done. And then, from my last show to my current show, I was able to have a 2-month break, which in a lot of other careers and industries, you don't really get that opportunity. Obviously, there's downsides to being a freelancer. For example, during COVID, loads of people didn't have jobs, and a lot of productions got cancelled. And then, but then after COVID, there was a huge boom in the industry. So you kind of just had to be prepared, and have enough contacts to see if you can take a few odd jobs. And at the minute, there's a writer's strike, so there is uncertainty. But in that, also being a freelancer, I much prefer it. I think it's nice being so hands-on, and you really do get to speak to everyone within the film, especially in visual effects. You deal with all departments. And how has Southampton helped helped me? I mean, it's helped enormously. I think firstly, my course, I really enjoyed doing English and film. I think there was such a varied, courses you could do or topics, and so making sure, it gave me a lot of confidence speaking in seminars and things like that. Most importantly, I did Wessex Films and CCTV, and I would say they were invaluable to me, especially during my first year. I mean, student films are like one of the best opportunities to get an idea of what production is like. It's obviously a much smaller scale, but bouncing ideas off each other, if you try and write a script and make it as official as possible, and then shooting it, helping your friends out, kind of learning what you like, trying out different roles on a student film, and then seeing it through. I think yeah, that's one thing with Southampton that I wish I did more of, was make my own films, because once you start working, there's not much time for stuff like that. And also, no one works for free once you start working. So student films are good to get some free labour from your friends. Yeah, I don't know if we'll do questions at the end, but that's me really.
Thank you, Imogen. I really love the point of getting free labour from your friends. There's a lots of things at university that I think there's a bit like that, because like you're in it together. So no, it's a nice point. And also just picking out on some of the other things you said, putting a CV through somebody's door, or how we would say it, speculative applications, where you don't know if there's a job, but you go and make those contacts, and you just kind of like, yeah, it's, especially I think in this industry, it is often the way in. As you said, lots of people know people, but if you don't know people, you need to get yourself in the room. And this is one way of doing it, by doing speculative applications. So I will do a quick plug, because perhaps if you're listening and go, I don't know how to do that, or how to say it, or how to word it, and what should my CV look like, come and see us in the career service, because that's exactly what we're here to do, and to help you do this. And also the point you raised about LinkedIn, absolutely. I mean, it's growing and growing and growing. I see it. I saw an application yesterday where it said, instead of sending a CV or an application in, it just said, send us your LinkedIn profile, that they want to see, parts of your experience, using it again to just kind of like contact people, join different communities, using the news feed, comment on articles, because that's how you can gauge other people. And also, if you did have student films or media you wanted to share, you can add that onto LinkedIn as well, so that you've got, or a link to your YouTube channel if you want to have evidence of perhaps your skill set as well. And again, I do have questions for you as well, but we'll save those to the end. So now I'd like to introduce Samuel, who's well versed in this. He's spoken for us before. But yes, I'm sure he's got lots of things to add to our discussion and event this evening. So over to you, Sam.
Thank you. I'm just gonna share my screen. Can you see something? Or it might take a bit to load. Is it sharing or?
Yeah, we can see. Sorry, I realised I was nodding without my camera on, so that doesn't help you. But yes, we can see it. We can see it.
I'm just gonna see if I can get. All right, I can't see anyone, but I'm presenting, so hopefully you can see the logo at the beginning.
Yes, we can see that.
All right, cool. So yeah, hello everyone. I'm Samuel, as you know. So in this presentation, I'll be sharing my journey and some tips that might help you. And the contents in this presentation isn't perfectly linear, but I've arranged it in this way so that it's just easier to follow. So first thing I'll share is my university experience. So I enrolled at Southampton in 2015, then graduated 4 years later. I made some short films with Wessex Films. I was a member of the Film Society, and I was also a film course rep as well. At one point, I was an academic mentor to about 10 first-year film students. I went to business-related societies, and that's where I developed an interest in business. I did some societies like football, gym, and even MMA for a little bit. I went to some insight days to learn about some careers that I was considering. So some examples are Herbert Smith Freehills, Accenture, KPMG, Newton Europe, and Capgemini. So me studying film seemed to actually be advantageous because these firms wanted a diversity of thought. At some point, I had to decide whether to pursue film directing or entrepreneurship. So a bit about production. I've had some work experience on the key stages of the film process. So for example, script reviews, pre-production, production, post-production, and distribution. And I've also spoken with Zai Bennett, who's the managing director of content at Sky, along with some script development executives and acquisition managers at Sky as well, just to get an understanding of the strategy behind content at Sky. After my Sky Movies scheduling work experience, I asked if I could get some production experience. So they invited me to join the Finding Dory junket, which was fun. So I've worked in production, in the production and post-production stage of The Crown. I was mainly with the AD team, but I also got to shadow the director and senior editor. I was then recommended to work on The Power as a producer's assistant, so I did that for a week. And a key highlight was attending a read-through with all of the key crew members. The set decorator and art director then invited me to join the art department, that sort of led me to work on Queen Charlotte as a set decorator assistant of some sorts. But I'll just sort of note that all of these experiences were, I think, a 1 week max. It was like a couple of days here, maybe a day or two, maybe a week there. It wasn't like 3 months, 6 months, or anything that long. It was just sort of to get an insight of those different stages. So after applying to a number of graduate schemes, I decided to go with Sky, which was my dream company at the time. And when I received the offer, there was 6 months gap before joining. So I called a contact that I had from my Sky Movies internship to see whether there were any opportunities that I could apply for during the interim. And this led me to work at Sky Sports in the scheduling team in the Sky Studios building. So after 6 months at Sky Sports, I joined the business strategy rotational graduate scheme. And my first rotation was in customer and product marketing within Sky Broadband. And the team's goal was to ensure that we had the best in class marketing. It involved me doing competitor analyses, branding research pieces, and developing training materials for our sales teams. And then I had to apply for my next rotation, and I was glad to join the content products team to do strategy and planning. And their team's goal was to mainly to provide insightful recommendations to bolster marketing performance. And that involved me doing marketing performance analyses, working on a multi-million-pound Virgin Radio partnership, and doing some competitor deep dives as well. My third rotation wasn't one that I actually chose. It was just sort of given to me based on my strengths, and it actually turned out to be my favorite rotation. The team's goal was to uncover novel propositions for departments and functions across Sky. And it involved me doing rapid research, facilitating workshops, which is almost like focus groups, and doing analyses to uncover useful insights. My final rotation was one that I had my eyes on at the very beginning, and that was commercial and trading at Sky Store. So the team's goal was to forecast, track, and analyze the performance of the films in Sky Store's catalogue. And that involved me working on the merchandising, trading, and sales and operations, sales and promotions of up to 30 studios that Sky partners with. And it involved me working on sort of going to exclusive screenings from Warner Brothers, Disney, and Lionsgate. So I can second that the Top Gun was like a very big film, because it was big for Sky as well. I think it was big for everyone. Some other things that I did which were voluntary were script reviews, an ethnic diversity project, and spending some time with the Sky Sports production team. Let's get some more quickly. So I'm currently a founder at a tech startup called Film Finder, and this is an app that helps you find films to watch based on your preferences. So for example, you could select multiple actors using a filter. So let's say Zendaya and Tom Holland. We'll then recommend you films that they both appear in, and then along with some other films that we think you'll like. I got the idea whilst I was studying film at Southampton, mainly because people always asked me for film recommendations. And I had a particular interest in apps as well. So I thought it would be interesting if I created an app to help solve that problem. I spent a long time learning about things like product design, product strategy, legal, monetization, marketing, etc. And yeah, I also networked with some key players across media, technology, and business to sort of accelerate my learning. A lot of what I learned from university and beyond has sort of been channeled into Film Finder. And it took several years to sort of lay down the foundations, but this year I'm going to put special effort to sort of get finalized and launched onto the App Store. So a number of people were concerned about my job prospects when I was studying film, especially when I decided not to pursue film directing. And when you tell people that you're studying film and they're in sectors like finance, science, or technology, you know, they might say a cheeky remark or something like that. And I just say sort of don't worry about them, that life is sort of what you make it, and getting a decent grade from a roster group like Southampton University is valued quite highly. So for example, on my business graduate scheme, a lot of grads had science or business related degrees. So that allowed me to sort of differentiate myself from others quite easily. And it also gave me an advantage when applying to content products and Sky Store, both of which were my first choices and were quite competitive to secure as well. So I'm now going to give you some tips based on my experience. So take it with a pinch of salt and ultimately do what's right for you. So a top tip is definitely to draft your essays and presentations earlier. I think if you wait until you've attended all of the relevant lectures and seminars for a particular module, that might be a little late. Definitely read the mark scheme for the assignments you're working on and discuss it with your lecturer and see how you can achieve that top band. And yeah, deeply understand the topics that you're working on, read the required reading, read the further reading, and maybe watch some relevant videos online. If they still have essay consultations, then book some sessions in, review your previous work, and get a better understanding of the key writing principles. What does good look like? What does great look like? That sort of thing. I think for me, I probably took a bit longer than I should have to think in a more strategic way. But yeah, it still was okay in the end, I guess. I think university is definitely a time where you can lay down foundations and try out different things, develop your social skills. But I think the key thing is to try and get the balance right. And I think the trick to achieving that is by reviewing your priorities. So thinking about what's important to me, what must I do, what's going to give me the most value for my time. I'd also say to be careful of the company that you keep. Some people try and lift you up, whilst others might try and pull you down. And I think it's important to sort of navigate these things carefully as part of your development and by exercising discernment. It's also important to be physically and mentally healthy, which I think is quite easy to forget at uni, where things are fast-paced. So don't neglect your health and well-being. If you can, eat well, exercise, sleep well, and spend time with good people. And I think by planning your days and weeks properly, that can sort of help to achieve this. In the final year, I was able to do sports, essays, socials, among other things, all within an average of like 8 hours of sleep. No all-nighters in the final year as well. So obviously you want to aim for a good grade, as there will be, if you're looking at graduate schemes anyway, there will be some that just accept 2-1s and above. But I definitely organize things in a way that enables me to enjoy life a bit as well. So overall, I'd say set yourself some SMART goals, which is an acronym for goals that are specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. And then think of some daily and weekly habits that will help you to achieve these goals. There's a popular book called Atomic Habits by James Clear, and that might help with this. I read his article, Transform Your Habits, and that helped me. I think, remember, it's okay to sort of have a plan and decide to go with something else, just like how I wanted to be a film director and pivoted into business. I think plans just help give direction and purpose. I'd also say be ambitious. There's so many things that I've achieved just because I had the ambition and determination to do so. Go out there and make stuff, just like Imogen said. I spent a lot of time talking and planning, but I definitely should have spent more time actioning things. And once you do action something, you can improve your craft gradually as well. Don't be too hard on yourself. I think aim to succeed, but don't beat yourself up about failing. Some things will come easier to you than other things. You might not get something right the first time or the second time. That's okay. I think in my life, I've definitely had a lot of ups and downs. I I think the key thing is just to stay positive, to learn from your mistakes, and to keep moving forward. So yeah, this presentation was just a snapshot of some of the things that I've been involved in. If you want more insight, then feel free to connect with me on Instagram and TikTok, samuel.csv, and that's where I'll be sharing my journey and posting some updates. On the Film Finder Instagram account, I share film recommendations, iconic film quotes, and some top talent. And in the future, I'll be sharing some more interesting content through my business account. So if you're interested in seeing that, then you can follow filmfinder.uk on Instagram and TikTok. And the last thing I'll say is take care of yourself, be organized, get things done, strive for excellence, but definitely don't be too hard on yourself. I think by achieving that balance is what made third year the best year for me. So yeah, that concludes my presentation. Cool, I'll stop sharing.
Thank you so much, Samuel. Wow, certainly a lot going on for you at the moment, as well as in recent years. And again, just to pick up on a few things, I thought it was a really good point that you mentioned about outcomes, because you're right. In terms of perhaps what we know in careers as destination data, the snapshot that film gives, some people then question it, saying, well, hang on a minute, that's lower than everybody else. But again, that's all it is. It's a snapshot of what people are doing 6 months or 15 months after they graduate. And often a lot of the roles, as we've seen from our speakers here today, are going to be things like entry-level roles, runner roles, because it's giving you experience and helping you make connections and then moving you forward all the time. It might not be the same as a business graduate scheme straight off the mark in terms of wage and kind of job content, as it were, but it is all moving you in the right direction, and you are far more than just a statistic. They can be useful, it's nice to have the data, but that's far more. Yeah, there's a lot more to gain from your future. Also, as Samuel mentioned, well-being, so important. So yes, that kind of like study well, but also, you know, relax well as well, making sure that you're taking the time out for yourself and taking care of basic needs. We can all forget it a little bit, especially in this time at the moment where often people are having exams and cramming to meet deadlines and everything else. So you need to be taking care of yourself. But one last bit I want to pick up on is the employers seeing film graduates as attractive because giving that diversity of thought that you said. I think that's an excellent line, and it really is true. Not only do we see it in film, but I also know, for example, the Bank of England love music graduates. There's something about how music graduates think and operate that actually make them, I don't know, appropriate for other roles. So that's been fed back to us before. So again, don't limit your options and your planning from what you think your degree is giving you. There is far more open to you. And on, like, as an additional note, 80% of graduate schemes and roles aren't degree specific. It's all around you, your skill set, your potential, and your abilities that you can bring with you. So yeah, if you do fancy a wider careers discussion, that's what we're here for as well. So I'm now going to open up the chat to our audience. Whilst you take a minute to think about possibly the questions you'd like to ask, if possible, if it's open to everybody, can you start your question with open to all? If there is a specific speaker that you would like to address or ask a specific question, just put that in the chat as well. And then as they come through, I will read them out to our panel to get your answers. But whilst we're waiting for those, I do have a few myself, if our speakers are happy to engage in a few more questions. Bear with me as I go through my notes. So I'm going to start with you, Katie. You mentioned in your talk about the recruitment process for Paramount, and there were several stages that you had to go through. Could you share what some of those stages were? What were the kind of like assessment activities you had to do as part of the recruitment process?
Sure. So actually, it was quite different than what I'd been told a lot of studios do. I think a lot do kind of assessment centers, but Paramount, specifically my department, I don't know company wide, but they were very interested in speaking to you, just you, rather than you in a group. So I had application form on their like online portal. So it was like a cover letter sort of thing, CV, just general, but a few questions about you. And then it was a phone call, which actually was kind of, I was expecting like a Zoom call, but it was purely like no face. It was just you on a phone, which was quite nice because it made me not nervous and I could have some notes. And then obviously got through that stage. Then they invited me to in-person interview in the office, which was great because I got to see Paramount Pictures and I wasn't thinking I was going to get the job at that point. So it was sort of just cool seeing the office, and it's based at Chiswick Park, which is very nice, very pretty place. And they sort of just wanted to get to know me, actually. And one of the things that my boss has since said that kind of drew her into me is that I was very engaged in a debate with her about how streaming is affecting transactional sales, which is what I work on. So she really liked that. And my background in film and cultural management gave me that business side that she was kind of looking for in someone working in an element of sales.
No, I'm muting myself. Sorry, I'm seeing what else you can do. Sorry, I'm trying to read my own writing now. This is what happens when you write this quickly. Do you think, I mean, what are your personal ambitions from here? So you're doing this role at the moment. Is there other things that you want to achieve? Has this given you more insight into, I've seen a person do a job that I want that job? Yeah, what are you thinking as perhaps your next steps or future goals?
Yeah, I think it's given me quite an insight into what I would be interested in and what I definitely don't want to do. So actually distribution is kind of not completely for me, but I've been to premieres, I've been to film screenings, and I can just see how much they engage people. So I'm actually more interested in that side. So I'm looking in film festivals, which is kind of bringing me back to what I wrote about in my dissertations. Yeah. And I kind of knew that was my sort of goal. Really good to see that in action. And I think Paramount is the only way I really got that. I think a lot of other jobs that I could have applied to maybe wouldn't have given me that crazy hands-on experience with seeing press junkets happen, seeing red carpets happen, seeing all the process come together. So yeah.
Oh, great. Thank you very much. Imogen, if I can turn to you. Now, you mentioned this, you talked about dailies running and like initial runner roles. But in case people are listening and thinking, oh, I don't know exactly what that is, but I don't want to ask because then I don't look like I know what a runner is. Could you explain a little bit about dailies running and what that actually involves?
Yeah, so a runner is basically an entry-level position in film and TV. It's someone who is on hand to help with anything that the whole production needs. You can have department runners, so we could have a visual effects runner, and they are someone who only work within our department. If we need someone to run out and pick up something or be extra hands on set or look after a witness cam, like they are there to help with that. Or you can have production runners who, help in the production office, and often they'll, do really every role that anyone needs. If they need someone to go to Tesco, they'll do that. If they need someone to keep eyes on an actor all day, they'll do that. So yeah, the one thing with being a runner, because it is an entry-level position, so many people can do the role. And so to set yourself apart when being a runner is that, obviously saying yes to everything and making yourself available and dedicated to the role, and not being afraid to ask any questions. You don't have to say, I don't know something. You could ask, how would you best like me to do something? And then they can tell you how they want you to do it rather than saying you don't know. The one thing I would say is knowing how to drive, not necessarily having a car, but knowing how to drive is something that a lot of people will ask. That's quite traditional, you know, that's if you're at a film studio, knowing how to drive. You know, if you're helping out somewhere else, it may not be a requirement, but you know, that is something that would set you apart. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's a really good practical piece of advice, because it may not be something that people are considering. I know when I was a student, I very much I'll learn afterwards, because I knew I was just going to be public transporting it everywhere and couldn't afford a car. So, but actually, as soon as I was entering the world of work, to expand where I could go and my options available to me, I was like, no, definitely need to learn to drive. You also mentioned, obviously, your role is as a freelancer. Is that quite common for visual effects production managers, or are there in-house paid permanent roles, or are there more opportunities if you're a freelancer?
Yeah, I think the whole film industry is basically built on employees who will work, you know, for a visual effects house, like in visual effects, or, you know, if you get a prop from a prop house, that prop house will have employees, or we do scanning of actors, the scanning company has employees. And then the other side of the film industry is freelancers. So, you know, on-set electricians, there'll be freelancers. And so, yeah, if you have a less flexible home life, for example, there's a lot of jobs in film where you can be an employee and you can get your 25 days holiday and all the benefits of being with that. At the minute now, I'm a freelancer because it works well for me. But you know, when I'm 35, it might not work so well. But yeah, I really like being a freelancer because you just have a lot of control over what, you know, I can take a break if I want to, and I feel it's more exciting, but for me, but there's obviously downsides to it too. Yeah, a lot of people in the film industry are freelancers though. So, you know, you're working with like-minded people. If you have a question about being a freelancer, there's so many people who have done it for years and years who can help you.
Right, that's really excellent to know. Also, people can look out for our own career service, has enterprise obviously built into it. We run specifically humanities freelance boot camps. We've done a specific music one this year, but I also know there are plans to do individual subject ones, like perhaps if you feature in film as well. So yes, to our audience, look out for those opportunities as well. Thank you, Imogen. Again, just to remind our audience, if you do have any questions, please, you can put them in the chat there for us. I will stop the recording in a minute before we go on to audience questions, in case people don't want to ask something and have it recorded. But whilst I'm asking them, we will for now. Samuel, if it's all right if I go back to you. Obviously, as you said, you obviously have production experience. You were thinking director side. You're now moved more into the business side, and now obviously having your own startup. And I will be looking for that Film Finder as soon as it's available on the App Store, because I love film, so I'm always looking for that. Oh, he's good. What else have they been in, especially early roles? So that's good to know. But do you ever see yourself going back into production or directing? Have you kind of made your side, or is it very much, no, this is where I am now, but I could see myself moving either side again in the future?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. So definitely, yeah, I've got, like Imogen said, an interesting point about making films, making the most out of that time at uni, because you know, I've got at least maybe 90 scripts, short films that I just didn't make in the end. So I've got maybe five to 10 that I really like and that I'd still, even today, want to make. So I think, yeah, depending on how things go, within a year or 2 years, I could make them. And I've always had the ambition to do a blockbuster film as well, to direct like a feature film. So I think in the future, I'll aim to do that. And yeah, in terms of the app, the beta version is out. So if you have a Apple device, iPhone, tablet, you can download the beta version. But yeah, App Store is a bit later on. Yeah.
No, that's great. I'm on Android at the moment, so I'll probably have to wait a little bit. Right. Oh no, we have had a question come in. Oh, sorry, just moving up. In fact, we've had two. So what I'm going to do now is that I'm going to stop our recording from here so that we can take some individual questions. So I will just say thank you to all our speakers.